All right, what is up, y'all? This is Will, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, brought to you by us here at ScheduleFly. Simple, web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service and at a low price point. Haven't raised our prices since we started in 2007. So as everything else goes up around you, ScheduleFly just stays the same. 30-day free trial. And we are at schedulefly.com, and my personal cell phone number is right there on the website in about 3 places, so you can call it or text me anytime. I do get text, even though I do operate on this flip phone. We would love to serve you if you're on pencil and paper or Excel. We'll make life easier and faster and less headaches, and make life easier for your employees who will have everything they need on their phone. If you are on another scheduling software and if you're on another one, they're either owned by private equity or they're publicly traded or they're backed by venture capital, and their prices keep going up, and their service keeps going down. So we're a great solution for you as well. Give us a shot, schedulefly.com. All right, now, this is a cool opportunity. I got Jerome and Marc on here with me, and their business is Premium Loavess. They're the second largest Jimmy John's franchisee, and there's a lot more going on there, which we'll talk about today, but they have a few of their locations, thankfully, on ScheduleFly. We've gotten to know them recently. A lot of respect for these guys and the business that they have built and plan to build. So, guys, thank y'all for jumping on and joining the podcast.
Thanks for having us, Will.
Glad to be here.
So, okay, the one question, now this is always like conversation, so we're going to take this wherever it goes, but the one question I always ask everybody, if y'all each answer whatever order you care to, is how did you get into hospitality originally? What was your first hospitality spark?
You want to kick it off?
Sure, why not? For me, just like with most people, around 15 years old, looking for a job, needed to get money for a car, insurance, and all that. I applied to a bunch of places, all your standard QSR restaurants, and sure enough, Jimmy John's, which I didn't know much about, became my first job at 16 years old. So hospitality became a part of my life then, not knowing that here almost 23 years later, that it would still be a part of my life. That's where it started, and it's still going.
So you've been with this brand since the get-go.
The get-go for me, yeah. So I got in 2003 as a 16-year-old high school student as an in-shop worker in Decatur, Illinois.
All right. Jerome, how about you?
Cool. Similar story to Marc. You know, my growing up in high school, my parents were big on work ethic, and it was very important to my parents that I had a job my 16th birthday. So 16th birthday came around, and I had been doing kind of like Marc, looking for a job, had to have something lined up. And the job I found was a dishwasher in a local restaurant in Morton, Illinois. And so that was a good, fun learning experience. But you know, I was quickly, fortunately, promoted out of the dishwasher room and up to being a busboy. So that was a fun experience, learning about hospitality, learning about serving people. You know, I continued on that path for a while, became a bartender in college. And in college is when, you know, I discovered Jimmy John's. So I did not work at Jimmy John's at an early age like Marc did, but I did have a passion for the product and a love for the business. I still remember, you know, that first day I had a Vito sandwich and barbecue chips, and it stuck with me for years. And so I took, about a 20-year hiatus from the hospitality industry. I went to work in the corporate world, which was a great career up until the point I met Marc about 4 years ago. And right time, right place, and it made sense to get into the Jimmy John's business at that time.
Well, hang tight one sec, guys. So what would you do for the last 20 years?
Last 20 years, I worked for a company called Caterpillar Inc. So I always kind of joke about, you know, I left selling tractors and now I'm selling sandwiches. But believe it or not, there's a lot of similarities in business. It's all about people and hospitality and customer service.
People and hospitality and customer service. You know, I feel like hospitality is, you think about it with like restaurants and hotels, but I've always felt like whatever business you're in, you can always make people feel welcome. You can make them feel appreciated. You can make them feel valued. You can make them feel like you authentically are glad to have them as a customer. I think it's a lost art, particularly. I mean, it's a lost art even in the hospitality world a lot of times these days, you know, much less outside of it. But that's something I want to touch on a little bit more with you guys. But look, tell me about Jimmy John's. What was it? I mean, Mark, you like got dialed in early on and stuck. Like, what's the special secret sauce at Jimmy John's makes it so attractive to y'all?
Yeah. So for me, like, to be fully transparent, as a kid, it was just like the flexibility it offered me of the hours of operations, the need of an in-shop worker. I could come in and fly in and work a couple hours. That's what they needed. And then I went on to soccer practice or band practice or whatever. So it fit with my high school avenue of still having a life. In the summers, you know, they were always looking for people to work more than a few hours a week. And so it was really just opportunity that drew me in. From the get-go, though, the training of Jimmy John's, even being a 16-year-old, getting slapped in the middle of a make line at 16 between two people who were in their 20s, hollering at me about how to make sandwiches and how to do it quicker. As a competitive person, it just became a natural instinct to want to do better. You know, if I memorized the menu within a certain amount of time, I got a raise. So I memorized the menu within a couple of days because I wanted the money. So the opportunity and competitive nature of it, being fast, but also providing great customer service was really fun. I worked in a downtown location to start. And I mean, the customers were the same 3 or 4 times a week, lawyers and bankers and business people in downtown Decatur. And you got to know their order and soon enough got to know their name and impressed them by having the sandwich ready as they walked in the door. Because you knew that John was coming every day at 12 o'clock for his number 4. So it was fun. I mean, it just the overall general nature of just having some fun was what kept me coming back.
You know, and my experience was more as a consumer, you know, for those first 20 years. You know, what Mark talks about having fun. I mean, that's what drew me to the brand, right? You go into Jimmy John's and the music is cranking and people, you know, are greeting you when you walk in the door saying, "Welcome to Jimmy John's." They know you by name. I just felt like it was something really special and it was different than going into a Subway or a Jersey Mike's or a Firehouse. There's a culture there that did not exist in some of the other, you know, quick serve brands that are out there that we're competing with.
Tell me more about the culture. What is the culture at Jimmy John's? What is different about it?
So Jimmy, I mean, going all the way back to being younger when Jimmy, you know, has been around forever. I mean, he started this thing in 1983. And I would say the culture, I mean, obviously it's fresh product fast. I mean, it's what we do. We try to do it as fast as we can in an ever-changing market. But the mainstay has always been have some fun, make great food fast, and just keep driving your customer satisfaction in through that. And Jimmy was just a loud, boisterous person. So loud music, having your music rocking during the day. And sometimes it's not always an appeal depending on the market you're in. But it's part of the culture, being loud, but not being obnoxious. But, you know, blowaways and things when people walk in the door, "Hey, welcome to Jimmy John's." It's definitely a staple. It's definitely part of the culture and part of where we've always been and where we try to keep our units alive and thriving.
You know, that's an interesting dynamic because you got Jimmy who started this thing and you have this unique culture. You have this unique guy. You have this unique way of delivering this product in a fun and a fast way. And here we are. So this was 83 that he started, is that what you said? Okay. So 40 years later, 42 years later, you guys have like, 2,700 locations? You're owned by Inspire, which is owned by Rourke, which is the biggest restaurant owner, I guess, technically in the world. Is it challenging to scale up that fun, unique culture as you go through these iterations of growth without losing the best parts of it? And I ask that because it's such a big challenge in business a lot of times, not just hospitality, any business. I've actually been through this before, the previous business. It's like once the big money gets involved, you have to be careful that they're spreadsheet driven, but sometimes you get rid of the things that make something special, and then it brings it closer to everything else. And then it's like, how is it different than, you know, our competitors? That's a big challenge, I think, when private equity and big money gets involved in these brands. I'm curious how Jimmy John's is. I mean, obviously you've done well with it with that many locations, but has that been part of the conversation as y'all have grown and been acquired?
I think we both have a comment here. I'll start by saying Jimmy was meticulous in who he partnered with along the way. So It started with Western Presidio back in the early 2000s. That's who was their first PE firm, and they blew this thing up and helping him franchise it further. O'Rourke Capital then came in and did a stake, and then Inspire Brands closed that final purchase in 1819. And I think along the way, Jimmy was he took a very important role in making sure that what you're saying stayed. So he's partnering and marrying with somebody who was going to at least recognize who we are, so they knew the ingrained culture of Jimmy John's. One thing that has changed, we used to be 5 meats, 1 cheese, 2 breads. That's as simple as we are. The world wants more. The world wants other options, and they did want more. And we were seeing that on the franchise level. We were seeing it in our numbers. And I think Jimmy could have gotten us there too, but it was at a point in his life where this made sense. Paul Brown and the Inspire Group have done a really good job, along with our CMO, Darren Dugan, and his team, to find out what do people want that is missing in the Jimmy John's brand, to help expand into a whole nother market of people who have never experienced Jimmy John's before, which is a lot of us were introduced to it at a younger year, but we're tapping into a whole new customer base now, which I think is helping us.
Absolutely. And, I've got a little different perspective on it than Mark. I mean, I don't think anybody can take away the culture that does exist within Jimmy John's because it's been around those 42 years almost. There's a lot of people that Jimmy trained, like Mark, that grew up in this system that, they just know what the culture is supposed to be and how it is. And we're fortunate in our company that all of our senior leaders are people that have been in the Jimmy John's business, even in accounting, in the Jimmy John's business for 15 to 20 years or more, right? So it's part of what we do. There's so much momentum that comes with it that despite some of the changes that might be going on and innovations that Inspire is driving, which are good, I think we maintain that historical culture that we've always had in the business and keep it running.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's okay. Good to hear. One of the things I want to ask you all about is, okay, so you've got 79 locations right now. 89 locations.
Yes,
okay. Now, Mark, you were there, you started early and we're going up through this system. When did you decide, I'm in, I want to own one of these things? And how did that happen?
It's a funny journey. I feel like Jimmy John's was always pulling me in, whether I knew it was going to or not. And, I worked on and off through high school and college. And then when my wife and I, dating at the time, graduated college, we were both applying to so many jobs after the '08 market crash. And there just wasn't a lot of opportunity out there. And a franchisee who I'm still buddies with today in Decatur, Illinois, called me and said, hey, if you can't find anything, I got a store for you to run. And then it was like living at home, saving some money and going down there. So I did it. And I was thinking nothing of multi-unit management or ownership at all. 22 years old, just doing not using my degree and going after something that I wasn't really planning to. On into my late 20s, I realized that multi-unit management at the time, I was running 4, soon to be 5 stores in Bloomington Normal. And things are hard, man. I mean, hospitality and customer service industry is a challenge. Keeping people, which is a big core aspect for us, keeping general managers and customers and assistant managers happy is a challenge, and it kind of wears on you. So my wife and I started a family, and when we were expecting our second child, I said, hey, I got to find a way to be involved in this thing on an ownership level, or I got to find a different avenue for my career, because it was a lot. A lot of good things too, but it was also just a lot of hours, a lot of time, which, don't get me wrong, the hours have not changed, but the success has allowed us to share some of that pain and struggle and love with people. So I just told my wife, I got to set out to make this something. And I was very fortunate. The woman I was working with at the time, she was, as my boss, my franchisee, was on the tail end of her career, and we just started conversations. She knew I wanted more, and we didn't really know what that meant or looked like. But then I have to give a little kudos to Jimmy John. His franchise agreement opens up the opportunity for your everyday operator to be a operating partner, which is actually smiled upon whenever your franchisee is wanting to scale back or to take a step back. So those conversations started, and it just led to me becoming a 5% operating partner in 2017. Our story kind of evolves from there, but slowly at first.
Okay. Gotcha. And then, so how did you guys have been connected for 4 years now? Y'all been together?
About that. Yeah. I think our kids met in preschool.
Mm-hmm.
Our oldest, who are both now 10, we're 3 years old. So actually we've probably known each other about 7 years. Only been in business together for about 4 years now, but it started off in an interesting manner. I think I remember vividly sitting at Mark's house he had invited my family over because our wives were better friends than we were. And he was having, I think, a bonfire Halloween or something. This was probably Halloween 2020, right? In the middle of COVID. I think he was using his 2020 P&Ls to start the fire. So, we got to talking, and, he was interested in some of my background and experience. I was doing a little bit of real estate investment at that time. He was interested in that. I was interested in Jimmy John's. We started comparing numbers and talking, and, within about 9 months, we ended up doing our first deal together.
Okay. Gotcha. And what does that mean, your first deal together? Like are you growing by buying other locations or opening new, or both?
Both now, but back then I had gone from 5 to 13 all through acquisition. But with our original other partner, we have one other partner with us. His name is David Butts. He's been a partner of mine since 2016, 17, and then he's a partner with Jerome and I in our entities as well. However, at the time, reaching 13 stores, he wasn't sure. David wasn't sure if he wanted to keep growing. I knew I wanted to keep growing. I didn't know how that was going to look. So actually, I had started conversations for a 7-store acquisition in Dayton, Ohio. And I honestly guessed that I was going to go do it on my own, but I hadn't really figured out how that was all going to work. Jerome and I met, and like he said, I mean, he's talking about investing in real estate. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should just do that and slow down the Jimmy John's thing. And he, on the flip side, was like, well, what do you need to scale this thing? And I was like, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? And so when the Ohio opportunity came up, and David, my original partner, kind of stepped aside for a minute, I said, hey, you want to take a look at this as an investor? And we compared notes, shared all the data with him, and David ended up staying involved anyways. But the three of us then bought the Ohio stores, where Jerome still was as an investor role, helping me with some understandings and things that it was not my high-end profession at that time.
Got it. And you're at 89 today.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was actually June of 2021 was when we bought those stores, and that got us to 20. So in the last 3.5 years, we've grown by 69 stores, and we've got development agreements to build out
about 45 additional new locations
over the next 7 years. So, yeah, we're busy. The group that we work with, y'all bought them a few years ago, right?
Correct.
Lions Group. Okay. Yeah, I remember him saying that a group was acquiring them or whatever. So, okay. And then you're looking for franchisees that maybe are retiring or want to step back a little bit, or do you also have ones that, like, do you buy like distressed locations that are underperforming? Or
I would say, kind of all of the above, Will. I think the best deals that we've done, though, are, some of the folks that, they've been in the brand for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And they're ready for a change. And we've been able to help those people retire or move on to another opportunity. And, we take pride in making sure we have good, smooth acquisitions, take care of the people that they've been working with for 20, 25 years. So those have been some of the better ones, and that's where, the group of stores that Ryan Cortese, our director of ops, runs in Milwaukee. He came to us through that acquisition. That's how we got to learn about Schedule Fly to begin with. But we have picked up some distressed locations. I think, going forward, we're just trying to be strategic about where that really makes sense. If it's a distressed location that's in the middle or connected to a bunch of our existing locations, and we've got, the bandwidth and the people that can help turn it around, then it makes sense for us.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have, well, you can get into as much detail as you want, but I'm so curious about how you finance these transactions. Is it a combination of owner financing and borrowing money from banks, or are you selling equity, or all the above, or is it vary, or how do you do these deals?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to all of the above. We've done some seller notes. We've done most of it, if not all of it, through just bank financing with the three partners. We're not equity salesmen. We've got, all three of us own 100% of this company, and continue to drive the performance on a day-to-day basis. And really, because of success in operations, we've been able to continue that borrowing. We've got a wonderful bank partner over the last 14 months. And I'd be remiss not to say we had a great bank partner to start that understood small scale lending and helped us with the first 6 years of this operation. And that bank operation helped us from our first loan all the way through up until about 15 months ago. And then it was time to scale up. We were getting outside of their comfort zone of borrowing needs and capacity. And so we've leveled up to another bank that's doing a great job. But for right now, it's just the numbers have to make sense. We're a cash flow business. It drives the acquisition conversation quite a bit. We want to make everyone happy. I mean, everybody has a number. And, we got to be fair to ourselves, be fair to the seller. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a cash flow model, and we go off of that.
Do you mind saying what bank you work with?
I don't mind. We work with Wintrust Financial out of Chicago. They have 140 to 150 subsidiaries all over. But that's who we started working with them about 15 months ago. And we've got a great relationship going in the right direction.
And Wintrust has been great. It's been a learning experience for us. Yeah. Their specialization in the franchise restaurant industry has been phenomenal for us, right? They're educating us. They're helping us understand how to grow strategically. But it's also just a different financing model too, versus like a smaller local bank who might say, sure, you can do whatever you want. You just come up with this amount of equity down and you can do it. Wintrust has been nice to, help us grow strategically, but, also take a look at the historical performance of the locations that we're buying.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out of Chicago. Did they grow up working with McDonald's or something, or is that where they got a lot of their expertise?
They did. Yeah, actually, you hit it on the head. The head of the franchise lending department started the franchise lending world with a relationship with McDonald's, and they've kind of grown from there over the last 25 years, I think. And I mean, to be candid, they're lending out about $2 billion in the franchise space, and they have a goal to grow to $2.5 billion. So I mean, that's something that they're hungry for a market for what we do. And with a smaller bank, like Jerome said, it was more of a one-off situation. If you want to buy this group of stores, here's the cash flow, here's the equity that would make this work for us. In the beginning, that was fine. It worked for us, but slowly we're learning that there's other ways to do it. There's other ways to do deals and flexibilities.
Yeah, I think as we accelerated our growth, our original bank, who was great to work with and to get us to where we're at, they became probably more hesitant about growth in this space. And it was just refreshing to find a lender like Wintrust who they were excited for us to come on board because they want this. They know the business, they see the value in it, and willing to grow with us and be a partner with us long term.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you got, the community banks or the smaller banks. They just, they stay in their lane. And, that's why there's community banks, and that's why there's big national banks, and there's specialty banks like Wintrust and Live Oak Bank and some of these other ones. So we should probably know them. I should probably get y'all to connect me with them at some point, because they probably, have customers that may like to know about what we're doing.
I think it's a great idea.
For sure.
And that's the other part of their wealth of knowledge that we weren't prepared for. It's a true partnership of, what they're seeing in the industry from all their other partnerships. And it's, it's people like McDonald's, Taco Bell, but it's also the littler guys, some of the up and coming brands that they are doing business with as well. And they're pretty stringent about, they don't just loan to everything. There's brands that they would like us to stay away from. And just because they're nervous about it, they have their own assessment the same way all banks do. But sharing that with us and helping us guide our decisions has been helpful.
What, I was up in State College, Pennsylvania, a week or so ago. And I was driving down like the main street, and there was a Jimmy John's that had closed. Like it had like the paper up, it was like whatever.
I know what story.
Surprised me in a town like that, but it surprised me a little bit. But then again, it all goes back to this. The brand checks out, the food, all the process, everything. But like if you're not executing every single day, and I'm really got your finger on the pulse of your location or locations, it can go sideways pretty fast. It's a tough business. And you have to, the good thing about franchising is that, there is a playbook, but just because there's a playbook does not mean you're going to be successful. Just because somebody has already come up with the concept and the product that you're going to sell and the process, the execution is so incredibly critical, and getting the right people involved is so incredibly critical, and yet probably harder than ever in some ways, I would think. So I'd love y'all's thoughts about that.
Yeah. I mean, the industry continues to evolve and change, and ways that we're prepared for at times and ways that we're not other times. COVID obviously shifted a ton of thoughts and a ton of direction about how people consume and how people are just customers in general. What are their expectations? But then it also comes back around. So it's all cyclical. We see it all come around. But what you know, and you said it earlier, and we've touched on it briefly, is what we know keeps everything moving down the road in the right direction is great execution, flawless all the time. And people that are happy to be in the store to welcome the customer in. So you hit on it. People is a huge part of our identity and our background, and what we believe is going to push us to the future and keep us going. Jerome touched on it. Our leaders have all been around Jimmy John's for a long time. So they've got that base culture of how to welcome customers in. Now it's just us trying to replicate that into 89 stores. And then, like you said, figuring out where our gaps are and then going in and trying to fix it.
I think, it's funny. This morning, we're wrapping up our performance reviews with our team. Sometimes that's a bad word, but it actually was this really powerful conversation to reflect back on what this team has built just over the past year. And I think to your question, Will, we take a lot of pride in training, in excellence. I think we have one of, if not the best training programs in the whole Jimmy John's system, right? And it's not just the LMS fast track learning that every franchisee has access to. It's systems and processes that we've built ourselves to try to make sure we are the best of the best. And that permeates through the whole organization, just like Marc mentioned, with the experienced people that we have that are passionate about it. They've been in this their whole career and they want to see it done right. And so it's been a learning experience to go from, when Marc had 5 or 8 or 13 stores, if something wasn't going right, he could just go fix it himself.
Yeah.
Right. And he still tries to do that today at times. Right. But we have to figure out how to do that across 89 stores. And for us, the people and the training aspect of it is really at the forefront for making that happen.
So, yeah, I mean, you've gone from small business owner to a big business owner and a growing, and you guys have plans to continue to grow. Where will you be in, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
So it's been a moving target. I mean, I'm going to go back 3 to 5 years when Marc and I first met 4 years ago, and we were talking about that Dayton, Ohio deal. And Marc was working, he had like a closet as an office in the back of one of our stores in Normal, Illinois by ISU. And him and I were just kind of spitballing. It was on a Saturday. It was like our first business meeting. Yeah. And I was like, Marc, where do you want to take this thing? Where can we go with it? What can we do? And at that point, we kind of landed on, 10-year goal. If we could get this thing to 40 locations, that would just be a dream come true. And so we got started, and that we kind of quickly found out that we could exceed that pretty quickly, but we didn't have a new goal. And the president of Jimmy John's, in a meeting with him back in early 2022, kind of caught us flat-footed, where he knew that Marc and I weren't aligned on where we were going in the future. And so the way home from that meeting, we challenged ourselves. We need to come up with one clear strategy and goal that we're working towards. And that became 100 locations by 2027. We're right on the verge of surpassing that right now. So we continue to reset this goal, but now what we're looking at is by 2030, we'd like to be at 300 locations. And that's going to be a tough road to get there, just to find the opportunities and the right opportunities to get there. But we think it's achievable. And it probably also opens the door to expansion into another brand at some point, right, to make that.
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, I'm hearing a lot of multi-unit franchisees, and particularly in brands, well, let's just say multi-unit franchisees. I'll start there, that are getting into becoming multi-brand franchisees, not having all your eggs in one basket, taking your ability to operate and execute and deploying that across a different concept. But you're talking about, so 300 locations, that's a big bite off of that Jimmy John's apple. But you think that you'll get there before you expand into other franchise brands?
No, we think that that 7-year goal, 6-year left goal to get to 300 stores by the end of 2030 is achievable in the Jimmy John's brand. But we know, we're actively pursuing other opportunities in other brands currently, but we're being very strategic about, does that brand align with our core values as people and what we've set up in the Jimmy John's business. So our entire office that's behind you right now, we're up to 19 people in here, and they all a lot of them actually come from different backgrounds. And then the structure of our leadership team comes from Jimmy John's. So we want a brand that has been around and is around for 20 plus years, and we know will be around for 20 more years, like the Jimmy John's brand. And we want to have confidence in that brand the same way we did with Jimmy John's. So, it'll come, but we're also being slow and careful about it, because we know that the distraction, if we choose the wrong thing, could be a derailment to what we're building currently.
And I think it's got to be something that we believe in, that we love the products, that we love the experience, because there have been a couple times where we get excited about numbers in a spreadsheet, looking at other brands and other opportunities. But it's like, man, if I'm not going to go feed this to my family, it doesn't work for me long term, right? Like I need something like Jimmy John's that I'm connected to, that I still love to this day, and that my kids love, my family loves.
So you don't get into other, sandwich brands. Like what types of concepts are attractive to you guys? Do you do it by like a day part type thing? Like I want a breakfast concept and then I want a dinner or like, how do you look at it?
I think we definitely are trying to kind of model what Inspire Brands did. Inspire Brands has done that, gotten dinner time covered with like Buffalo Wild Wings. They've gotten the lunch covered with Arby's and Jimmy John's. And then Dunkin' was their morning coffee breakfast concept. We obviously think that a morning concept would be great to add, whether it be coffee or breakfast. We think it'd be a good start, but we're not opposed to any of them. It just needs to fit the culture and the model of what we're good at, and not just be a flash in the pan, today's popular item, which comes up a lot. There's a lot of QSR things that are flashy and really cool, but if it's too risky, it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So you're looking for a track record of, been around, they've proven they can grow. They're not trying to grow too fast, which also happens with franchise organizations. You see that a lot, because then it's more about the franchisors, not the franchisee, collecting franchise fees and everything else. The next thing you know, they're all operated poorly, and the whole thing kind of goes kaput.
Well, there's a lot of brands right now where we could go to the franchisor and become a franchisee tomorrow, but to go develop 5 brand new locations for a franchise that we've never operated before and that we might believe in, but we don't know the background. We don't know the culture because we've never been in there. It's something that we're not widely open to, or else we would have already been in a second or a third concept. Because we can go to Dallas, Texas and bring a Midwest brand down there tomorrow. But we both strongly believe in, we need to get in there. We need to know what it means to do that, whatever that is, and feel the pain of that operation with their people before we can start harping at people how to perform on the bottom. So that is a big pain point right now. A lot of franchises want just automatic building and development. We want to do both. We need to acquire something alongside. We will agree to develop for you. That's what we do here. We know that's part of the model, but we need to learn and love the operation first before we dive deeper into development agreements.
Y'all are, I know you're in Seattle, because that's the first time you and I talked, Jerome, was talking about Seattle. So that's a newer acquisition. Is that right?
Well, so actually, that one has not closed yet. So that would be within about the next 60 days. But, our current locations are, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio, both of the Carolinas, and Texas is where our footprint is today.
Whoa, you're in the Carolinas, huh? I don't know that we've talked about that. I didn't realize.
We're not too far from you. We're in the Raleigh-Durham market as well as Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay, right. So you're not down here in Charlotte. There's a Jimmy John's about 100 yards from where I'm sitting right now.
There's some really good Jimmy John's stores.
Great franchisee. Yeah, great franchisee right there. Does a great job, and they run a great operation. He's got, I think, all of the Charlotte market. He does an awesome job.
Well, we need to make a phone call here. You got
to do that.
Yep.
We could do.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I'm assuming you've been out here. Obviously, you've been out here if you own franchises out here. So okay,
yeah. So I had actually lived out there in Raleigh in 2007, back when I was working at Caterpillar at the time. And I loved that community. I loved the state. And when this opportunity came up, that was a long deal in the making, the Carolinas deal. When it came up about a year and a half ago, I was like, Mark, this is a place we have to be. I know it's really far from us. It takes, 2 flights for us to get there, but it's a great market. They love Jimmy John's, and we're fortunate to have found an opportunity where we have the entire Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill market, and a lot of growth opportunity there ahead of us.
Do you do, so I think of Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and then I think of Columbia. So you're talking about college towns. Is this like, is it a concept that works really well typically in college towns, or is there no correlation?
Well, that's how Jimmy started it. I mean, everything started, it started in Eastern Illinois. Then he did second location, Champaign. Actually, second might have been in Macomb. But either way, he stopped. His first like 5 to 7 locations were at Eastern, Western, U of I, Purdue, and so on and so forth. And the 80s and 90s and a lot of the 2000s, that pushed a ton. It was an awesome late night food. Back then, when he started delivering, in whatever year he started delivering, outside of Chinese food and pizza, it was Jimmy John's. So like he was way ahead of his time. Jimmy blew people out of the water by saying we can deliver sandwiches to you. So we rode that wave for a long, long time. COVID and third-party delivery both put a massive shift on how people consume food in general. And then, the stress of being in this business on employees. Post-COVID world, a lot of those hours of operations, and not just our stores, but chain-wide, changed. So we used to have, Jimmy John's used to have a lot of stores open until 2, 3, and even 4 a.m. after the bars closed. And, it was hard enough to find people in 2020 and 2021. So that was the first thing. The first thing to go was, well, we can stay open until 10, but we can't do 2 a.m. And some of that stuff's just never come back around. And the consumer habits have changed. It's not just an employee issue. It's consumer habits.
No, but there's great opportunity for us, right? The locations that we bought in North Carolina, that former franchisee had closed down the NC State and the Chapel Hill locations during COVID because of the challenges that Marc mentioned. But it gives us an opportunity to restart, right? We're looking really hard right now at NC State, Hillsborough Street. We've got LOIs out, on Franklin Street and Chapel Hill right now. And so we're hoping within the next year or so, we're going to have some new locations in that market on college campuses.
Yeah, real estate's tough right now, at least in the Southeast. I don't know about everywhere, but I hear that a lot lately. It's, it's just hard to find good locations. Are y'all seeing that as well?
It sure is. It depends on the market, right? And, we do a lot of new development in Dallas, and Dallas just continues to grow. And there's even with today's interest rates and challenges in construction and real estate, people are still developing new commercial retail buildings. And so it's been easier to grow there than in some of the Midwest markets where things are maybe a little bit more stable. So it just all depends on the market.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got, and what was the year that you wanted to hit that 300 by?
2030.
All right. So you got a lot of work to do. Okay. Yeah. Acquisitions to make, places to build out. So do you have your eyes on, like, are you targeting specific markets, or are you more, hey, if this franchisee in this market where we haven't really thought of is about to retire, we're very interested, or both?
Both. We've gotten ourselves caught before by saying we won't do this or do that. And so what I've started to phrase, and what I think we both perfected a little bit, is, if the business makes sense, we'll take a look at it. But to honestly keep coming back to people, for us to go to a new state outside of the 6 we're currently operating in and soon to be 7, we need a 10+ store acquisition, and we need bodies. And not just people who are holding space, but we really need a director of operations or a district manager who's been around with that organization for a long time. Acquisitions are not just about the stores or the assets or the dollar amount. It's, we go in and we need to spend time with the person who's going to run it for us. Because all of the hometown heroes from Bloomington Normal that helped start this thing with us a long time ago have all spread out, and they've all moved on up to bigger positions. And we can't keep doing that. That pipeline of people can't come through one area. It needs to come from the whole organization. So we're continuing to spread the wealth of knowledge of, you don't have to stay in one city forever. A Premium Loavess is in 6 states, soon to be 7. But in order for us to get to an 8th state, that state has to offer a lot more than just a good deal. It has to offer people.
Got it. Okay. Well, you're probably, so as you start thinking about other concepts, other day parts and things like that, there's good. I mean, shoot, right here in Spartanburg is Eggs Up Grill, which is not far down the road here. They're at, have you all heard of them? Eggs Up Grill? 75, 80 something locations, been around, 20 plus years. Really well run. They're in Spartanburg. You got Famous Toastery right up the road in Davidson, North Carolina. A little bit smaller, probably 30 locations, but another well-run breakfast concept. You should dial into the podcast because, I'm having a lot more of these franchise CEOs come on lately and share their stories. So you may find a good concept that way. There's a dude here too that y'all might want to get dialed in with. He started a company recently called Franzy, Franzy, and it's doing really well and it's growing very fast. But it's not just for hospitality, but what he does is he's kind of like displacing the franchise broker. So he goes and he matches potential franchisees with the right franchisor. And I met with him last week. He's a sharp dude, and I think he's going to do really well. His name's Alex. So if y'all ever want to talk to him, I'll send you his summary email if you ever want to connect with him. Really good dude too. And he's got a good long vision for his business. And I respect him a lot, at least from what I've learned so far. So, okay, guys. So what else should we talk about that we haven't talked about yet? And you guys are quite an impressive lot there, right? Really growing fast. You must put in a lot of hours. And this isn't something you can just get up and go to 9 to 5 and do, not with that kind of growth. So how do you balance all this with your families and your lives outside of this as well?
Yeah, it's funny. We just talked about that a little bit over lunch. Everybody strives for work-life balance. Everybody's always targeting for what that means to them and what it means to the culture and the generation. We had a buddy that was doing some leadership training for people in Bloomington Normal a year or so ago. And truth is, when you really sit with it, work-life balance is kind of impossible, because if you get up in the morning and your kid gives you attitude before you drop them off at school, you're probably walking into the office a little upset or a little hot, which means you're taking your home life to work and you're taking your work life to home. So I think for us, what has helped both of us as leaders is growing up in two totally separate industries. We've both done it, and we've both missed a bunch with our families, and we've both been there for a bunch too. So we're just learning to try to share that knowledge with people, like, hey, you can't shut it off, but you need to pause it for a while to be present at this. And then, we both work really odd hours. I'm in the office every day at 7:30, but I'm out of here most days by 3:15, 3:30. And then I do a lot of work from, 8:30 to 10 o'clock, depending on what the needs are. I mean, a lot of our leadership team, Jerome included, there's emails coming in all hours of the day and night, because when you find the time to lock in, it's when it can happen. And office hours are also a lot. So, but it is just continued concept of do the best that you can and try to be there when you need to.
Yeah. I have not solved the balance issue, but I think, I don't know that I'm ever going to, because
you're not.
When you love what you're doing,
yeah,
and you enjoy it, you're going to keep putting the time into it. And so I just try to be intentional about, when I have that, I don't think it's balanced, but when you find those opportunities to really have fun with the family, this weekend I was out, we've got a little farm behind our house, and the boys are out there making forts out in the woods and stuff. And it's like, all right, let's just go see what they're building and have some fun with them and help them with it. I think it's just, making sure you make the most out of those experiences when they come up. But for me, at least for the foreseeable future, I love what I'm doing. I don't think Mark or I could ever shut it off. And so it's just a matter of, making sure we keep our wives happy and spend the time with our kids while they're young that we can.
Yeah, you won't shut it off, guys. I can just, look, the thing is, it's like, I feel like if you have it in you to build something really great, you may even sell it one day, but you know what you're going to do? You're going to sit around for about a week and go, I got to do something. It's just in you. That's a good thing. It's like the people that, you see a lot of people, they exit their business and then they have seller's remorse, or they're right back doing something, or, it's hard. And that's a good thing that you do something where it's not like, I have to go to work. It's like, I got this cool problem to solve at work. Good. That's a cool thing. I think that's great. That's what creates a lot of success in a lot of businesses, is being willing to do whatever you got to do. And just, it's harder a lot of times for people that run successful businesses to stop and take the time to be present with family and friends and everything else, because it comes so naturally to just be like, what's the next problem I can solve for business? What's the next problem I can solve for business? It just is. But that's a lot better than being lazy and not wanting to work and hating what you do. And, Warren Buffett wrote a book, Tap Dancing to Work, right? Dude's 90-something years old and still shows up every day and loves what he does. And that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. And I think you guys are doing a really good job of, it's good that you've crystallized those goals and you've exceeded those goals and you keep pushing and you dream really big and think really big and you anchor yourself really high. And so that you wind up finding a way. Like if you didn't anchor it really high like that, you probably wouldn't get there. But by doing that, you're like, okay, we'll figure out a way to get there. Not exactly sure how, but we will. And I think it's awesome that you're also looking at other brands and not just, you said something I think is so smart, which is that you're not, the numbers can look good, but if you don't love it, that's key. I mean, y'all know that, but boy, is that key, because, you have to really, really believe in what you do to be really successful at what you do. I think that, at least. To not get burned out. A lot of people can do something, but they get burned out. And you see CEOs sometimes, like they retire or resign, they're just like done. They're just burned out. But if you love what you do, and I feel the same way. Like I never wake up like, I'll wake up like, hell yeah. Like we've been doing this 18 years. I still love it every single day.
That's cool.
Very fortunate for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, the growth and those goals, it helps us out a lot with our team, right? It keeps them motivated. They are excited to be a part of this, a lot of our team members still call this a startup, and sometimes it offends us because we're like, hey, we're no longer a startup. But I guess, depending on how you look at it, it might be. But it really not only keeps us motivated and heading in the same direction, it keeps the whole team centered on where we're going and what they're part of.
It's good if you can grow as aggressively as y'all have and put in the systems you need to put in to execute and to continue to scale and grow while also feeling like a startup. Like that's a tricky thing. It'll probably feel less and less like that as you grow, but the more that vibe and culture you can keep, which is achievable, will help you keep those great people, of course.
Yeah. I mean, last year was a lot of that for us. I mean, Jerome and our VP of accounting, Carolyn Gaudio, she's got a huge background in Jimmy John's. And I mean, together, the business, those two changed our entire process last year from January to the end of the year. And Carolyn brought on an entire new accounting system, brought on an entire new process of how we're going to look at the books and the numbers. And then Jerome spearheaded, standard processes and trying to replicate all of this so that we can keep growing and scaling. But, it just, when you're putting the track together while the train's already moving down the road, there are days where it's a little chaotic. But part of our culture is learning how to thrive in that chaos. We are that organization that when it all hits the fan, we know how to take a deep breath, take a look at it, and put a plan together and get it done. And that's why, I think another misconception is that we just, in order to grow this size, you just buy anything and everything that's out there. And it's just not true. We turn down a lot of deals. We take a look at a lot of stuff to learn from other franchisees' successes. And then there's times where it's like, hey, that's not for us, but you're doing a great job and we're here to support you. And if you need a partner to buy you out, we'll figure that out. Maybe we'll call some people for you. But we have opportunity to scale this thing and a lot faster than we have. But we also want to keep our people in mind. Last year, we took on 32 stores in a matter of about 90 days. And it was humbling. I mean, we had done growth before, but never like that. And if we do it again, we're ready because we learned a lot from it. So that's what I mean in learning from the chaos. We put together a plan of what went right and wrong and in between of onboarding 32 stores in 90 days. So if it happens again, we know we can do it.
Has ever heard of the concept of a pre-mortem?
Haven't.
I'm trying to remember where I heard it. It was on a podcast, but I really love the idea. It's like, instead of a post-mortem, it's a pre-mortem. So if this thing goes wrong, what do we think are the things that probably will have caused it to go wrong? And you lay that out early on so that you're not fooling yourself with the risk. I think it's a cool concept. Like I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Some of the stuff I've been working on. It's like, you just want to think through all those things because it can be easy to get caught up in getting a deal done and so forth and growing for growth's sake or whatever versus like, what are the things that could trip us up and make sure that we're just like, and you're learning these as you go. And now your pre-mortems every time will get even more concise and more effective because it'll be a smaller pre-mortem probably as you continue to grow because you're learning all this. What about this year? Like, how has business been this year? Because I hear a lot of places, a lot of people are like, yeah, we're a little down from last year. The consumers, tightening their belts a little bit. How are y'all looking?
I would say that was us last year. It really hit us early last year. People started eating out less, spending less money. There was, a little less money going around in the economy. And so we finally are at kind of this tipping point where things are turning around. This year, despite a few bad weather weeks, things have been really, really strong for us in the Jimmy John's business. The win that we've got in our sales right now is Inspire, and Jimmy John's just came out with toasted sandwiches nationwide. So that is a huge new thing for us, right? We've got a lot of customers out there that, didn't come to Jimmy John's as frequently or did not want to come to Jimmy John's because they did not want a cold sandwich for dinner or in the winter. And so just last week, we launched that nationwide. We've been testing it at about 20 of our stores over the past year, and it's going really well. And it's just gonna add to the success that we see us having this year. Just thrilled about it. And if you haven't tried one out, Will, you gotta go to the local Jimmy John's in Charlotte and give it a shot.
I might go after this because it kind of sucks out right now. It's been nice lately, but I left my house earlier to come over here. It's cold, but cold for us. It's like, I think that's freezing. It's rainy and crappy, and I can't imagine eating a cold sandwich right now. But if it was toasted, I can be solid into that. I might have to go over there just to honor y'all after this one and give your fellow franchisees some business for sure.
The toasted ultimate Italian or roast beef and cheddar a chance. Those are my favorites.
Good. Roast beef and cheddar. That'd be my ticket. I like beef. I eat a lot of red meat, a lot of beef, so I'm all about it.
Got a little bit of horseradish sauce on it, a little bit of bite, but it is a fantastic sandwich.
Yep. Love it. Oh man, guys. So this is really cool. Congratulations to you two for building what's clearly a really good balanced partnership. The two of you, and building just clearly a great business and a great team, and having these ambitious goals. I know you'll continue to have days where you're like, what in the heck have we gotten ourselves into? But that's true of any growing business. You clearly have a lot of, it's just very, very obvious talking to you. You both love what you do and you enjoy putting a lot of hard work into it. And so that, I'm sure resonates with all of your team, and you got an ambitious goal ahead. So I appreciate the opportunity to jump on and talk about this today and share the story. And you've made me a fan. Like I'm a fan. I like the Jimmy John's story resonates. It's a cool vibe. So, but I really do appreciate this. I appreciate the business for the locations that use ScheduleFly, and just thanks for the opportunity today.
Yeah, we appreciate it too, Will. Thanks for the opportunity. And it is good having great partners like yourself. We've gotten to know the ScheduleFly system pretty well. We've got experience in 4 or 5 different scheduling platforms, and we know what you've got is a racehorse, right? And it does wonders for us in the Milwaukee market, and look forward to seeing how you grow your business going forward.
Absolutely.
Been great spending time with you today. Yeah, spread the word.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. And thank you all that are listening. And one thing I always forget to say is to you two is go subscribe to Restaurant Owners Uncorked on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever, and then give us a rating. Hopefully a really good one, but give us a rating, because these things are, the subscriptions and the ratings just foster more, the algorithm puts it in front of more people. So, all right. Well, that is a wrap. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon. Appreciate it
so much.
Thanks, Will. Take care. See ya.